All right, what's up, everybody? We're going to do something a little bit different today. I am here with Patrick Red. Is that your real name, Patrick Red?
My real name's Patrick Doherty, but no one knows how to pronounce my name, so I'll just go with Patrick
All
Red.
right, so we'll go with Patrick Red for now. Now, Patrick Red, I'm probably explaining this not in the best way, but Patrick Red is an expert in something called social circle game, which, if you want to explain that in plain English, would be creating an elite lifestyle where you, and this might sound, kind of ridiculous, but you network with high value people. You can meet, people of millions of dollars, very successful people, extremely attractive women, and there's a small group of people that have kind of mastered this and have turned it into a science. Patrick Red is one of them, and I'm doing this interview right now because this is something that I'm very interested in, and just going to kind of pick his brain a little bit. Got a bunch of questions here, and hopefully he will be, I want to thank you for coming on today, my first ever interview. And yeah, that's basically it. Do you want to, because I probably didn't explain social circle game as well as you could have, how would you explain it for people out there who don't really know what it is? How would you explain it?
Yeah, so if you're sitting there right now and you have no idea what social circle is, let me just kind of explain this for you really directly in layman's terms. So first off, if you kind of believe in having a normal life, if you believe in like kind of like mediocrity is okay, then this is definitely not the interview for you. Go click away, watch some other YouTube video or some cat memes because this is really just going to be some untailored truth. So, with that in mind, social circle is about building the five closest people around you. And I strongly believe that you are the average of the five closest people that are around you. And because of that, I help professionals build their happy social lives by helping them connect with high status men and beautiful women. So that way they can actually get access to a social lifestyle that they deserve without sacrificing time for making money, uh, earning money, working on their business, things that would normally keep them out of a professional context if they were just going to a nightclub for 40 hours a week. So really, what that's really meant to do is cut out all the negative, toxic people in your life and really replace those with guys who are exactly where you want to be and not having to kind of go through this grind of meeting random people every single day. Instead, just finding the cream of the crop people that you want to be around, learning the social skills of how to befriend them, and getting access to their cool lifestyles.
Okay, cool. So basically, in other words, what it sounds like. Let's go to pretend land for a second. Let's say somebody said that they want to become friends with, internet marketers who make $20,000 a month, and they want to, have female friends in their life who are, professional models, or they want to break into like the fitness modeling world. You would basically teach them in a very short amount of time how to do those things with, from what it sounds like, minimal financial investment involved. Would you say that's like accurate?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely have minimal financial investment involved. I mean, I like helping guys who are literally like 20, $40,000 a month entrepreneurs, professionals, guys who literally don't have the time. There are plenty of people who can teach you how to become more social. There are plenty of people who can just tell you to go out more often and make this kind of your social life like a second job per se. But I really want to help guys who already have really high successful jobs create a social life around the guys that they really deserve to be around.
Right.
So
So like,
two of my
oh,
students
sorry.
off the top of my head with the example that you came up with, like coming around $20,000 a month internet marketers and beautiful women that are their type. Yeah, I have two students off the top of my head, one in Seattle and then one in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, that just ring a bell right off the top of my head. But yeah, that's typically it's a guy who it lives in a really big city, has a high paying job, but earning more money won't help him build a happy social life.
Okay. So quick question. Then I want to ask you about your background and how you got into this. But um, just to like clarify, hopefully, right? There's some people who have more money than time, right? And those are obviously the people that you want to talk to. You're growing a business and that kind of thing. But there is something that people who have more time than money can do also to build their social circle, right? We can come back to that later, but let's just like, because I don't want people to turn off and be like, oh, I don't make 20 grand a month, so I'm not going to watch this, because maybe someday they will. But if people do have more time than money, there still are things that they can do to build their social circle, correct?
Of course. And I mean, I personally specialize in guys who are making twenty to $40,000 a month, run like $15 million a year companies, things like that. That's what I really specialize in. But they're definitely the same social skills. It's really money independent. That's not the purpose. Is like you're learning how to spend your money to build your social life or anything like that. It's really about who gets the best type of ROI out of it. And it's cool if you're like a student and you're 20 years old and you're trying to like get into events for free, but at the same time, there's just a different level that you can reach if you're a professional.
If you have
Uh,
money to play with.
if you have a little bit of money to play with.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into social circle game? Like, how did you learn this stuff? Like, what's your background?
Okay, so I feel like I had a really fucked up social life most of my life. I would always sacrifice the time that I could for making money. Or like I would sacrifice any social events. It would kind of make me afraid to go out to social events, and I'd rather kind of like sit in an office and work 12 to 16-hour days. With my first company, I was working 16-hour days. Literally didn't talk to anybody, even my family, for about 2.5 years of my life. Was kind of a friendless, straight A nerd who had only dated three really depressed women in my entire life. And I was making a ton of money, and I would just literally cry every single night. It was the worst feeling in the world because I felt so alone. And I realized right away that I'd always had these big aspirations for going and traveling, going and being around cool people, being around and dating women that actually made me feel happy as a person. But at the end of the day, the things that I was doing on a day to day basis weren't going to actually get me there. And I realized that I kind of wasn't on a path to achieve that full potential. And because of that, I realized that I just needed to find somebody who kind of had the lifestyle that I wanted. But at first, I was like, oh no, I can't do this. I had gotten a flyer for an event from one of my clients, and he invited me, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I would rather work. No, I'm not going. But he showed up to my house anyways, literally forced me out of the house and brought me to this event. And when I went to that event, it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced because I thought that rich guys only had beautiful women around them because they had a lot of money. I thought that you can't enjoy social events if you're trying to make a lot of money. And it's kind of a superficial thing to enjoy really classy events with other rich people. But when I showed up there, there were guys who were dressed in business suits, who were surrounded by the most beautiful women I'd ever seen. And it was something that clicked right away with me that, whoa, this is like a glimpse into a new reality that I didn't even know existed before. And from that, I was able to make more business connections. I was able to actually enjoy the friends that I had. I actually have really long lasting relationships with really cool people that I never would have even pursued in the first place had I kind of been stuck in this mindset of like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's for those other guys that are really cool.
So
So that's
you
really how I stumbled upon it. It wasn't like an intentional thing. It was just out of like a sheer pain.
and then you learned from somebody, you learned from a mentor specifically, right? You didn't just go out and like try random things on your own, or did you?
So I really believe in the idea of like your one introduction from whatever you want. And my one introduction for me personally was a guy named DC Promoter, and he's one of the top celebrity VIP hosts for events, charity events, nightclubs on the East Coast in New York, DC, and Miami. And I happened to actually stumble into him and become really good friends with him. I don't really understand how I did it because I was such an unsocial person. I didn't even understand how to talk to people. But that one connection was things that got me access to yacht parties, bottle service tables, uh, rooftop charity events, like things that I didn't even know existed beforehand. And it wasn't things that I needed to pay more money for. It's just this guy kind of brought me up into this track, and it was kind of amazing. So he was a guy that literally cut my learning curve from 2 years of being friendless to instant social circle of beautiful women that I wanted to date and guys who were crushing it in business even more than I was.
Okay, interesting. Now, so let's talk a little bit about like cold approach, because you were interested, or you know a little bit about like pickup and cold approach in the game and all that stuff, or because you know that a lot of people who find social circle game generally they don't start out by looking for it because it's kind of a new concept. It's only the past couple of years. So how would you say cold approach compares to social circle? Like, what are some of how do they kind of fit together, or do you need to only do one exclusively, or is there some kind of room for them to fit together somehow?
Mhm. So if you don't know what cold approach is walking up to women or men, usually women, and trying to get them attracted to you, and just talking to them from literally like the street, the mall, like really random types of events, right? Um, and for me, I think that's like the peasant's way about going through it. Like if you think about the guys who are actually have the type of lifestyle you want, you think about like let's give an example. Drake, right? I'm not Drake, you're not Drake, we're both not Drake, okay? But let's think about what does Drake's daily life look like, okay? When Drake wakes up in the morning, he doesn't look in the mirror and say, yes, I deserve to be amazing, yes, I deserve to be the best, yes, I deserve to have beautiful women around me. Drake doesn't have to go through all these kinds of things, right? When Drake's walking to the grocery store, he doesn't go walk up to some girl that he's not even attracted to try to like get her to like him. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
he just has an abundant life already. So Drake doesn't have to go out of his way to bring things into his life. Obviously, he works hard and to work get where he got to be, but at the same time, if you became friends with Drake tomorrow, I mean, you don't need to have deserved it. Like you don't need to have the earned status. You don't have to have gone through the grind. And the problem is with this idea of cold approach is that guys mistake the end goal, the things that you're actually trying to achieve, like being able to imagine like you're sitting back in a nice chair with a nice martini around other guys that you think are really cool, your beautiful female friend bringing you other female friends as well to introduce you to date potentially. And guys mistake the pain of trying to go through this process of getting people to talk to them and randomly approaching people as like things that will help them to the end goal. But there's way faster ways to do it.
So basically, you're saying is that the difference between cold approach and social circle is that social circle starts with the end in mind, where you say to yourself, for example, I want to have these types of women in my life and these types of men in my life doing these sorts of activities, whereas cold approach is kind of just like I'm going to build it from the bottom up, and maybe someday, hopefully, I'll eventually get there as a result of me like learning how to get people to like me,
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
think you put it the exact way. It's like the reason I have the star in the logo is it's called the North Star. It's like keeping the end in
I thought
mind.
you're like a Russian KGB agent or something. It's like the
Yeah,
Soviet flag or something like that.
yeah, that's definitely
It looks like the Vietnam flag a little bit.
I have a good cover. I have a
Uh,
good cover. Let's just say that.
okay.
But yeah, it's the top down approach, right? Understanding exactly what you want at the end of things, because just approaching random people isn't going to really help you do anything. There's no way that you're going to randomly like maybe you've randomly met a celebrity in the past, but how often are you randomly meeting people that you actually want to have in your life?
Not very often. It's kind of like
You have to
random.
be, yeah, you have to be really intentional about it, which is a great way to put it. The way you put it.
Okay. So, what? How long would you say? Like, let's say somebody knows, for the sake of argument, somebody knows everything that you know. How long, let's say from beginning to end, all things being equal, how long would it take to build a new social circle in a city that you've never been to before? How long, roughly? Is it a couple
It
days, a
definitely
couple
depends on
weeks?
it depends on your goals, right? So it depends on your goals and what city you're talking about, right? So there are slower moving cities like Washington D.C. Then there are really fast paced cities like Las Vegas and L.A. And in Vegas, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to achieve, but to have some type of reasonable social proof, where like you know the places to go, you know what type of lifestyle you want to have, to know the type of people that are around. I mean, if you dropped me in the middle of a place like Wichita, Kansas right now, I'd have crazy social proof in like 3 hours.
Really?
But for guys who are just trying to learn this from themselves, 12 weeks is a pretty simple time to kind of get the core fundamental skill set that even if you don't live in your quote unquote ideal city, dropping you into a new city, you should be able to build a new social circle from scratch without really having to worry that much.
So let's say it takes around 12 weeks to learn the skills, right? Somebody, you take them from your old situation, like you said, bad social skills, just not familiar with talking to people. And then they go through, your program, for example, 12 weeks to learn everything. And then once you master the skills and you kind of know how to do it in a new city, let's say, Dallas, Texas, or something like that, like not Vegas, but also not Wichita. You
Mhm.
think like 30 days, 2 weeks. What I'm asking is it's not this thing that takes like 6 months, right? It's something that can happen very quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, imagine you learn how to play basketball in your backyard,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not your ideal place. Like you're not playing in a game, you're not like playing against people. You're kind of just playing, learning how to play basketball in your backyard. Well, if you learn how to play basketball in your backyard, it doesn't really matter if you know how to shoot a 3 point shot in your backyard. You know how to shoot a 3 point shot on an NBA court. They're the same 3 point shots, the
Right.
same height of the rim. It's the same exact skill set. It just depends on, like, the only thing that your environment can kind of limit you on is what's the upward potential.
Okay.
So I think of it as exactly the same. I mean, if you learn the core skill set, you just apply it to a new spot. And I mean, I've had situations where I'd never been to a city before, where I had built a social circle even before I'd been to that city. Then when I show up, I already know exactly what I'm doing. I already have high status guys that I can go out to events with. I already get invitations to private Maxim parties, Victoria's Secrets parties, things along those lines, without having to kind of go through this daily grind. So, I mean, to put a time frame on it is kind of uh, unfair.
It's like how long is a piece of string, like that, right? It
Exactly.
could be anything. Okay.
But at the same time, I haven't found anybody who's been able to do it faster other than literal celebrities who already have like worldwide social proof.
Okay. Fair enough. What would you, aside from finding a mentor and like stuff like that, which will obviously fast track you, what would you say is the most important thing for people to do? Like you have somebody who's trying to build their social circle. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give him, assuming you can say you can only give him one? What's the one thing that he could do that would have the most effect for building his social circle? What would you say that is?
Having clarity on the end goal.
Hmm.
And that sounds really clear. That sounds like super easy. Like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I want. I know why I want it. Well, most people really don't, and they kind of need somebody to call them out on their BS for
Mm-hmm.
what they want. Another analogy that I have for this is, let's say that you want to go to the grocery store, and you can walk to the grocery store, you can ride a motorcycle to the grocery store, you can ride in your car to the grocery store. Well, one will get you faster to the grocery store faster, but let's just say that you hop in your car and you just start driving. Well, you don't really know where you're going. You don't really have the direction or the exact place you're going in mind. So you can be going somewhere really quickly, but be going nowhere.
So you
So
you said that a lot of people they think they know what they want, but they need someone to call them out on their bullshit. Can you give us an example of like when you've seen that in the past, like some situation where that happened, where you had to do that?
a guy who says that he wants to have a threesome with two girls, but is a virgin. A
Hmm.
guy who goes to college, who literally doesn't understand what the job that he's going to get at the end of going to college. It's like you're putting in 4 years of work and you're spending $250,000 to go to college to get a job that won't even help you get the lifestyle you want. But
Hmm.
instead, if you were just like an accountant or somebody who could work remotely, your life would be a million times better, even if you earned a tenth of that. It's like people just don't understand what the work that they're putting in today, what that helps them accomplish a year from now.
Okay, so it sounds like basically what it comes down to is defining the type of social life that you want, and then working backwards. Is that
Yeah, and being really, really, really ruthless about it. Um, when I set my goals in kind of quarters. So I set my goals once every 90 days, and I'm really ruthless about it. I don't kind of like just bar myself based on my environment. I'm like, okay, what is the actual ideal lifestyle if I had an infinite amount of money, if I had whatever connections, if I had infinite time, what is the things that I actually want in my life without letting my parents judge me on that, without letting my friends judge me on that, without letting my family judge me on that. And if you are really ruthless with that, I mean, then you're always heading in the quote unquote right direction.
Okay, that makes sense. Um,
I mean, maybe have you experienced that too in the past? Like maybe you did something that you're like, yeah, this is even going to get me what I want. I don't understand
well,
why I did
I'll
this.
I'll tell you the reason I asked that question is because I've been learning about social circle game for like, I don't know, you know how it is. Like you're interested in something for a while, and then you dabble in it, and then you kind of abandon it because you get stuck, right? So that's happened to me, I would say, for about a year and a half since I like figured this out, or since I was exposed to it the first time. And one of the things that I noticed, and this is the next question that I wanted to ask you, is that it seems like social circle game is really centered around things like nightclubs, things like people who will be at bottle service tables, models, very like wealthy guys who have yachts and mansions and stuff like that. It all seems to be like photographers, things like that. It all seems to be very kind of that seems to be like what a lot of people will talk about, getting access to those people, like you said, the DC promoter, things like that. So would you say that like social circle game is really kind of best used in situations like that, or is that, I don't want to say like, is that the only situations that it's useful for? Because I think there's a lot of people out there who kind of this idea appeals to them, but when they hear things like nightclubs and promoters and like yacht parties, they get, I think a lot of people are interested in that, but I think some are like resistant. They're like, oh no, I don't want to go to clubs, I don't want to be around those types of people, kind of thing. So um, do you think that it's applicable for like other areas as well, or is it really kind of just for like the nightlife party scene?
Yeah, all the things that we're talking about are sound incredibly superficial. So, I mean, you're gonna if you're watching this, you're probably like, "What's this dumb guy on the internet talking about all these superficial things?" Go ahead and post all the hate down below. But anyways, with that in mind, those are some things that some guys have are really in guys' dreams, right? So it's that my clients, that's what they want. It's not that I want that. Personally, I don't really care where I go meet people. I really just care about, okay, why are bottle service tables the spot to go, right? Why is it not like bowling? Well, I could go to a bottle service table and there's a guy there that has the money and the ability to spend $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
What other type of events, venues, things like that can you go walk into for $20 and go meet somebody who's willing to spend $10,000 on discretionary spending for fun?
Right.
Where else can you go meet 10 to 20 hot girls that are your exact type by spending $20 to get into an event? There's no other. There are other venues. There's like private yoga events. There's private charity events, but a lot of them are not as plentiful or readily available as bottle service tables. And like if every high status guy that I want to connect with was playing like bocce ball, I would become the best freaking bocce ball player you've ever seen. I'd be out there every day practicing, right? But no, business deals are done on a golf course. Business deals are done over bottle service tables. Business deals are done in social environments, not in a business setting. So when I go to actually professionally network, I don't look for professional networking events. I
Hmm.
find spots where I can meet professionals outside of professional events because I know how to offer them value and connect with them a lot easier in those types of settings. And it becomes something that, yeah, you can have the best quote unquote proposal for a business deal, but even just becoming friends with somebody and having a shared experience and doing something fun becomes the things that actually create those long lasting relationships with guys rather than what I've seen in professional networking events. Because it's all like kind of like so contrived and kind of like,
It's never anybody that you actually want to talk to, you know?
yeah, and it's just so forced. It's just so forced. It's like when
Yeah.
you're in a social setting, there's just so much less pressure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, one sec. Okay. what are some things? So now obviously we have this whole like issue going on in the world right now that like quarantine and everybody's stuck at home. What are some things that do you think it's possible to like build your social circle during quarantine,
Of
or
course.
you do? So
Yes.
how would you recommend that like people do that, just because everything's, clubs are closed, most
Mhm.
businesses are closed. So like what would be your advice for like working on social circle game during this time?
So for me and my clients, we don't really focus on techniques and like kind of one-off things. We really focus on core skill sets like how to offer value, how to get someone interested in you, how to get somebody to want to invite you to these high status events. So while the venues might change, while you might not be able to see people in person, the same core skill set is still underlying all this, right? Maybe it switches from having a face-to-face conversation with somebody. Now it's Instagram, social media, those types of things, but you still communicate the same underlying principles. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Um,
So in a crisis like this, so many people have been punched in the face and they're just like they're battered, they've lost their jobs, they've lost their family, like family social life, they've lost like almost everything that they've had up to this point, right? And a lot of people go through a lot of freaking pain. And I feel that in my family, and you probably have felt that in your family as well, right?
mhm.
And my heart goes out to them. But at the same time, so many of those people could have been way more successful if they had actually taken this stuff seriously beforehand. They didn't have, they had a good relationship, which is why they didn't have a great relationship. They had a good job, which is why they didn't have a great job. They had a good social life, which is why they didn't have a great social life. So for my students, they don't really feel the same pressure and pain because they've been having their head down, making sure that they're building their social lives, and are even more dedicated to using this extra time that they have to actually get things solved. And there's plenty of things that you can do. Literally, if you have a phone or a laptop, I mean, there's plenty of things that you can do. You have access to probably 3 billion people who have social media accounts in the entire world. And there's an endless supply. It's kind of like a diamond mine, and you just need somebody to teach you how to mine.
Hmm. Okay. What are some of you talked about adding value. What are some examples of ways, of adding value to, let's say, like high status individuals or very attractive women? What are some examples of that?
So a lot of guys don't feel like they deserve to be friends with them because they don't understand how to offer value. It's the same thing of like how we connected, right? Like I don't really know you, you don't really know me that much, but the message that you sent me was pretty straightforward. Didn't waste my time because I get 100, 200 messages, all the time, and it's just random people asking for things. But no, you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I have a YouTube channel. I really like your content. I have 3,000 subscribers. I'd like for you to talk with them as well. And maybe this would be really interesting. And you made it super simple for me to there was no friction in the process, right?
Right.
So that came from a really good spot of offering value. So each individual person is very different, right? And just to say some universal way to offer value is really kind of overdone because I could say, hey, say this thing or do this thing to this type of person, but that doesn't really work. But if you kind of understand the underlyings of like, hey, you recognize that I'm a busy person, you had empathy for the situation, and you offered something that was very poignant and very clear and very easy for me to commit to, it becomes so much easier. So I think offering value is more about understanding empathy of the other person, kind of what's happening from their heart out, than being really clear and poignant with exactly what value or what thing that you want them to commit to, and making it super easy for them to commit to it.
Okay. So it sounds like you need some sort of asset. I, I'm just saying asset for lack of a better explanation, but like, for example, you said I had the YouTube channel. It was easy for me to say, hey, do you want to be interviewed on the channel? Um, for somebody else, it kind of sounds like they would also need something like that. Maybe YouTube, that's like who even has that? Not a lot of people.
Yeah,
Um,
and
right? So like what would you say to somebody, let's say everybody, you could say everybody's got something, but like what about somebody who doesn't have anything? Like, do you think they should start working on something? Do you think there's like a general thing that some people can say even if they don't have anything? What would your advice be there?
Okay. This is a problem that I think is more of a mindset problem rather than a reality problem. Because grounded in reality, you're right. Most people don't have a YouTube channel that they can offer value with really quickly like that. Um, that's definitely truth in that. But at the end of the day, it's not about your resources, it's about being resourceful. There are plenty of there are plenty of ways that I've connected with literal celebrities by being resourceful when I didn't really have a lot of money. There are plenty
Can you
of
can
ways
you can
that
you give us an example? Just you don't have to name any names, but you caught somehow. How would you like? How did you connect to it? You don't have to say exactly like what you did, but like just give us a general idea as far as like how you made that happen.
Mhm. So I mean, there are guys that spend tens of thousands of dollars on bottle service every single day, right? I've been at tables where they've spent a half a million with a celebrity named Summer Rae. She has like 22 million Instagram followers. I mean, I've been to private parties with like Machine Gun Kelly, G-Eazy, Sam Rima, the casting director of Playboy, Fabio. I mean, I've been to like A-list celebrity events and met these people, and they didn't care at all about any type of like they didn't care at all about the typical things you'd find as value. And most high status guys already have enough money. That's why they're high status, right? They have a ton of money to spend money on things that they want. And they're so focused on solving other people's problems. They're so focused on solving other people's problems, and that's how they got their money, or else they wouldn't be in the position that they're in. And that's really where you come into that. They're high status guys who have the same problems just as you and I. They have the same stresses, they have the same problems, but they just have a shorter attention span.
Okay.
So you don't really have to have like a YouTube channel and things like that. There's other easy ways to connect with people, whether that be photography. I mean, I'm giving you kind of
Let's
examples, but
let,
there's like
let's
four
let's do
under.
this. Let's pretend that I didn't contact you, right? And let's say you were going to give advice to somebody to contact you to add value to you. What would you say would be some of the like how could people get your attention if they wanted to, for example, or somebody in your situation? Like what would be some of the things they could say?
So when I think about this like adding value thing, I think about not don't look out from your eyes outwards, look out from like feel from their heart towards you. So like when you're talking to me, like you weren't thinking from your eyes out towards me, right? You're thinking from my heart towards you. How would Patrick feel when I message him? Not how what would Patrick see when I message him? What would Patrick feel when I message him? So when I connect with high status guys, I really focus on how do they feel, not what do they see or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, they just want to have good emotions. They want to feel like you're adding value to the situation, even if you don't actually do that in a reality. So with you, it's like if somebody's trying to connect with me, think about what that person is going through, the other person on the other side. I'm getting hundreds to 200s of DMs of random people all day. I'm getting invitations to high status events and parties all over the United States, America. I have two businesses. I have a girlfriend. I have my own mentor. I have my mentees. I have literally a second phone just for some of my one-on-one clients. Like there's a lot of fluff that comes in my mind. So if you're trying to communicate with me, you have to be super poignant. You have to understand how I feel, and you have to offer something that I'd actually be easy for me to commit to. Because if you don't do that, then they're just going to ignore you and leave you unread or not even read your message to begin with. So
Okay.
when offering value really has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has to do with the context of the environment. If you let me, I'll give you another quick little
Yeah,
analogy.
sure. No, please go
I
ahead.
like my little analogies.
Yeah, no.
So let's say that you have a bottle of water and you walk down Cleveland, right? And it's the middle of winter. Well, nobody wants your bottle of water. They're like, okay, why do you have a bottle of water? But everyone can kind of generally say like a bottle of water is like pretty much free. It's $1.
Mhm.
Well, let's say that you are standing outside of a DJ booth and you see the DJ and you buy a $5 bottle of water at the bar, and you go walk up to the DJ booth and hand him a bottle of water and you walk out. The DJ is going to be like, oh, who was that guy? Why did he just give me a bottle of water? Oh my God, I was so thirsty. Thank you. And you didn't even take any value. You didn't even stay in the DJ booth. How high status is that? The DJ is going to wonder why the hell this guy gave him a bottle of water because it wasn't somebody that worked there, and be like, wow, that's really thoughtful. And then if you go back to the DJ booth, the DJ is going to be like, thanks, man, for the water. I appreciate it. And be like, oh, yeah, no problem. And then if you bring two girls to the DJ booth, now you have access to the DJ booth. And that's something that you can replicate in any city. And then another example is if you have a water bottle and you're standing at the outside of a marathon, right? Everyone's going to tackle you for that bottle of water. They're going to punch you. And they're going to be like, give me that freaking water bottle. And a water bottle is free, but it depends on the context and the environment that you're bringing the value to. So if you kind of just prescribe like, oh yeah, I'm just going to bring a water bottle with me everywhere, offer it to people. Well, that's not what value is, because value is really about the empathy side of what the other person is feeling. Okay. I know this is a big
no, that's
big
fine.
concept
no,
to break down, but at the same time, I could tell somebody, I could tell you watching this, like.
So I understand what you're saying. It's not, you're not saying like, here's the strategy for building value. Go take a water bottle and give it to the DJ, right? That you're not like, you don't want people to take that out of context and say like, okay, so that's all I have to do is just go give the DJ a bottle of water. It's to have this sort of mentality of like, put yourself in the other person's shoes, imagine what you think they would want, and then send them, let's say, a very brief message or have a brief interaction with them, and kind of shoot your best shot and, you know, assume what they would want and kind of build on that from there. Something like that, yeah. Right?
So many people, like, you can assume what they want, but you can also ask questions. Sure. Like, if you walk up to a homeless person, or if a homeless person walks up to you and asks you, what is your biggest dreams and shit like that, you're probably not going to answer it. But if your best friend asks you that same question, you guys could have a conversation with that for 2 hours. So but the same way, like, you can ask questions to find what people want, but just don't be interview mode with a random stranger.
Right. Do you think that there's a difference? Like, let's say you're trying to network with, do you think that there's a difference between networking with men versus women, right? And if so, what would you say the difference is? Like, what are some of the subtle nuances there, would you say?
Okay, that's a really good question. So let's think about the reality, again, from the empathy side. Let's think about a reality for a guy. Most guys, even if they're super high status, don't have tons of women hitting them up. They don't have tons of guys sending them invitations to things. They spend a lot of time alone. They kind of have to work for any type of social life that they have. On the contrast, even a woman who's not that attractive has dozens of guys messaging her, female friends that are always talking with her on the phone, sending Snapchats, things like that. So there's a big difference in the dynamic between the social life of a guy and a social life of a girl. A joke goes like, hey, if you invite 10 girls or 100 girls to an event, 10 will show up. And if you invite 10 guys, 100 will show up. So the difference between men and women with networking then is pretty clear. Like, you probably already understand, like, hey, it's so much easier to connect with a guy rather than a girl. And I really believe that. And I think that it's super easy to get access to more female friends, if that's what you're looking for, by becoming friends with a guy who's definitionally where you want to be with the dating life. Like, if you stand next to a guy who's walking up to women all day, like, you're going to meet the women too. Like, you can meet 10 women if a guy's already, like, actively kind of having that type of lifestyle. It's the same thing with becoming friends with a guy who's a promoter. His entire lifestyle is dedicated to talking to women all day. That's so much easier to become friends with him rather than message 100 to 200 women a day.
Okay. So then, do you think, like let's say somebody has more time than money, would you say that it's a better idea to spend your time trying to make friends with those guys who are connectors, let's say, or do you think it's better to, like, go the other way, the other option that you said, and try and, like, message the women instead?
Regardless of if you have more time than money or more money than time, the easiest way to build your social circle is going to be this exact thing. Female friends. Female friends are not the easiest to connect with but female friends will give you the most abundant social life the fastest. They
Hmm.
have access to whatever you want. They have other female friends that they can introduce you to. They if you have female friends, it builds your status right away. It builds attraction, it builds comfort with any new women that you go and talk to. And it becomes something that actually adds to your core confidence as well, because now you have like a hot girl as your best friend, which becomes so much easier as a reality to go back to when a girl rejects you or some other thing like that.
Right.
So the main key I think to all of this is really female friends.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. What are some of the ways that are possible to leverage your social circle to have cool experiences and to do cool stuff? Like, what's the, I don't want to say best case scenario, but let's say you've got this amazing social circle. What are some of the ways to like actively take advantage of that? Like, how can you, I guess, maximize that instead of just passively like letting it happen?
So obviously it depends on what your end goal, but I'll give you an example. So when I was living in Vegas, I became friends with a ton of strippers. I wanted to become with friends as many women as I could. So I wanted to become friends with strippers because they're super social, they're super outgoing, they're openly sexual, and they could introduce me to more girls as well. Also, they also love to travel, and because they have tons of money to travel, so it becomes something that was so easy for me that I would say, "Hey, let's go to Art Basel. Hey, let's go to Art Basel." And if you don't know what Art Basel is, it's the cream of the crop art event in the United States, where it's literally an international art event where celebrities, international models are literally just everywhere. So it becomes so much easier. It's just what rich people do. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so when I just kept telling people, hey, let's go to Art Basel. Hey, let's go to Art Basel. And it became a thing of I had told so many people, let's go to Art Basel, that people started messaging me. Oh, let's go to Art Basel, Patrick. Why are we not going to Art Basel? Let's go get the Airbnb now. And then I got another guy to go pay for everybody, pay for my flight, pay for the Airbnb. So I didn't even have to pay for anything. And it's like I could pay for it, but it was also really cool that I just got some other guy to go pay from it from social connections. So I mean that you can start your business from social circle. You can network with people who are definitely where you want to be. You can use that to go to the events and the cool things that people just go to. Like if you're going to Tomorrowland, to Ultra Music Festival, to Coachella, all these types of things can be revolved around the same exact concept.
Interesting. So, obviously you don't have to go over the exact conversation, but when you say like you went to Art Basel and you had somebody else pay for the flights or the Airbnb or whatever it is, um, I guess a lot of the question comes into play is like, okay, you have this great social life, you know, all these high status guys and girls or whatever, and how do you like? I'm just wondering. I guess did you ask him like you can come with if you pay, or did he offer, or like how, or does it vary from time to time? Because I've heard stuff like that before. I'm just wondering like how these things manifest. And for the record, I'm not saying I don't think you were like, yeah, you can come with if you pay, but I'm just wondering like how does that actually end up happening?
So for guys that are making like $40,000 plus a month, like how much time if they spend a day trying to meet somebody, they lose $1,300. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So a lot of these guys they just pay for logistics. That's why they pay to go to events because they can meet 10, 20, 50, 100 people all at the same event that are also high status. So I mean, if you think about it like monetarily wise, it just makes sense for them. So in the way of this one, I had just said this to a bunch of female friends. I'd had a ton of female friends around me. I only lived in Vegas for like 3 months, 4 months, I think actually. I don't remember now. But I didn't live in Vegas that long. But there was this guy that I told him, "Oh yeah, let's go to Art Basel." And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." And I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, let's like I didn't really believe it myself, so it wasn't like a reality for me, right? It's kind of just something that I really wanted to do, but I didn't really put like my hands in the mud or anything like that. And he's like, oh yeah, let's do this. And he started actually planning these things. He was like, yeah, like we have to go do this and we have to go do that. And I was like, I mean, yeah, I told a bunch of these other girls that they could come. And yeah, it would be cool if he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I'll just pay for it. Don't even worry about it. Just invite everybody and then we'll go. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. Because like then I had done so good of a job with the social skills that it was kind of something that now it was taken out of my hands. Like
Mm.
somebody else was kind of shaping my dream for me. It wasn't something that I needed to like grind for 20 hours a day, messaging random girls on the internet. It was something that just kind of one connection kind of made it all kind of fit together very, very uh, spontaneously, but also kind of miraculously.
Interesting. So I guess, not to simplify it down to one sentence, but if we were, it seems like you kind of just want to surround yourself with people who, you know, their lifestyle is such that, for example, paying for flights and Airbnb at Art Basel and everything.
Yeah,
Like
as a drop in the bucket for him.
exactly, it's like you taking your nephew to McDonald's or something. You don't care. You're like, oh, what do you want? You want a Happy Meal? Here, you want a milkshake too? Go for it. It's all right. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Kind of like that, right?
Yeah, and so many people will be like, "That's so superficial," and that's cool. That's then this is not for you. This lifestyle is not for you. That's cool. But if you kind of just suspend your disbelief, I mean, it just even makes sense for the guy because the guy just, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna go out and cold approach random girls on the street when he's making $40,000 a month? Like, what type of lifestyle? What type of guy do you know that's making millions of dollars a month, millions of dollars a year that's walking out on the street to meet random people? Like they just don't have time for that. That makes no sense.
Right. All right. Got a couple more here.
These are good questions.
Yeah, they're good. Okay, good. I'm glad you like them. Um, okay, so we talked about like how to kind of take advantage of your social circle to, like, for lack of a better explanation, like get free stuff. But what are some ways, like let's say you build this social circle and you want to actively try and monetize it, you want to actually make money. What are some ways in your experience or opinion that you've seen are some good ways to do that, or potential ways to do that?
So I'll give you some ideas from my clients based on kind of their North Stars. So I have one client who lives right outside of Central Park in New York City, has an engineering firm that's doing about $15 million per year, and he wants to be able to connect with guys who are at the highest level of investment in real estate in New York City. And not on like a, oh, I want to go to a brokerage firm and actually just buy a property. But no, he wants to find guys who are already successful with like making money in real estate investments. So for him, it becomes super easy that if I show him the social skills of how to connect with those people, and you're gonna have to remind me of this question again, the exact question again. Um, but for him, it was like connecting with those types of people is something that literally helps him make more money if he's able to get this business deal. Another example is a student, Peter K, in Houston, Texas, who is a day trader and a stock trader. And through intentionally meeting guys at bottle service tables, he was able to meet with a stock investor that helped him flip $3,000 on some penny stock or something. I don't know. I have the testimonial on my Instagram, but yeah, I mean, it's easy to be intentional about it once you kind of define and have clarity on what you want at the end of the line.
Okay, so it's kind of like the sky's the limit, or I guess what it sounds like is like um, the best ways to monetize it is maybe leveraging your current profession or business if you have it to meet the ideal people that you could meet there, and maybe like organizing some sort of event or something for them to go to,
Yeah,
or
yeah, leveraging your current, like I personally only work with guys who are making upwards of $20,000 per month. So for most of those guys, they leveraged kind of their existing network, their existing net worth, to actually make those connections, or not to make the connections, but to make more money. Um, but for a lot of them, it's more about the fact that they feel lonely, the fact that they don't have the type of people that they feel the quality that they actually want to have around them, things more along those lines.
okay. Um, how do you think it's important or easier, or there's any advantage if you're just getting started building your social circle to do it, let's, for lack of a better explanation, behind the front of an actual business, as opposed to you just contacting these people as an individual? Like for
What
example,
do you mean exactly?
so like for example, let's say you have two options. You can either try and build your social circle just as a person, I guess. Like I'm coming to this, whatever, you contact people and interact with them as a non-business owner, I guess, or you contact them as a brand. Like let's say, random example, you have a company that puts together nights out for high net worth individuals, and you contact nightclubs as this business, as opposed to you contacting them and saying, hey, I represent like a high value client and I want to like, you know, uh, as like a normal person. Do you think there's any advantage, I guess, to like having a business to use in building your social circle? Like a business designed to build a social circle, a business that like goes after high net worth individuals and attractive girls, I guess. Or do you think
Mhm.
it's unnecessary?
I think it's completely 100% unnecessary. There are some guys, like I said, that can become promoters and things like that to get access to nightclubs and things like that. But at the same time, I mean, you can start your social circle if that's something that is really aligned with you, with something that just brings you more models. For example, some of my clients are photographers, event photographers, have gotten into like shooting with the baby, Gunna, Stunna for Vegas, like these types of A-list rappers that are like the top in the U.S. right now. But at the same time, like that's kind of their goal, rather than kind of like the other things, right? Like their goals were literally like, I want to be able to be backstage at rap concerts. I want to be able to be backstage at 100,000 person EDM concerts, rather than them going into that niche for kind of just things that you can easily get solved other ways.
Got it. So it's not necessary, and it doesn't really, it's not worth the effort unless that specifically aligns with like what your main, I guess, like vision is, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of like oh, how can I get to the store? Oh, it has to be on a bicycle, right? It has to be on a bicycle. It's like the equivalent of saying like, oh yeah, I have to become a nightclub promoter to get to get XYZ result. It's like kind of like prescribing the how rather than prescribing the what that you
Mm,
actually want to achieve.
got it. Makes a
That's
lot of
why I
sense.
think that that's kind of where people I think kind of get messed up, is because they point to the thing that's right in front of them instead of realizing that if they just took a step back and kind of looked around the corner, they'd see like a wide open gate that no one's going through. Um, and that's kind of the same analogy that I use for like, hey, yeah, you can become a nightlife promoter, but you're not understanding what the end goal is.
It's like you have a store down the street that sells milk. Why would you drive, 10 miles to the next town to get the milk, basically?
Yeah,
Got it.
it's like it's like go to the closest thing that gets you there.
It's the same milk.
Same milk. So that's like a weird analogy, but okay.
Okay, cool. So before we wrap it up, what if people do you want to talk a little bit about your like coaching program and like the length and the specifics? Maybe if you want to mention like the range of services that you offer and like stuff like that. Cost, maybe if you want to bring that up, or how would people get in touch with you if they want? Um, do you want to just freestyle on that, or
Yeah.
should I?
I mean, do you have your own coaching program too, right?
Not for social circle, no.
Or what do you coach exactly then?
Fitness.
Okay. Okay. So first off, if you need to get your fitness handle, make sure you check him out. Check out his program. He has an awesome. I've seen your pictures on Facebook. You're still staying ripped even in quarantine, probably.
Trying to.
Um, so make sure you check him out first. But if you kind of don't think this stuff that I talked about is superficial, if you kind of feel the loneliness of, hey, I'm a high performing entrepreneur, professional, that I don't have the type of social life that I want, and I want to be able to get this solved with kind of the minimal time spent and without sacrificing time for making money on your business, then you can check me out at my Instagram at coachpatrickred, or on my website. www.elitelifestylementoring.com, spelled just like behind me.
I'll write it in the description of this video. All your
And
contact info too.
you can actually apply for a free one-on-one call, either with me personally or one of my expert coaches, and we'll give you a full step-by-step plan on how to build your social circle. Even if you live in a city that's not ideal, even if you don't have a ton of time on your hands to spend away from your business and kind of have to build this on the side, and even if you have no experience in anything that we're talking about, I've seen it before. I know how to overcome it. I've done it for myself, and we have plenty of success stories to kind of showcase that as well. It's not going to be for most people. Most people are going to watch. If you watch to the end, you're probably a little bit more discerning than most people. So you probably believe it's kind of a reality. But it's kind of really only for like the select few people.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. But other than that, it was really, really nice talking with you. And
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Anything you want to add before we end the call?
no, just check. I don't know which direction you run, but check him out because he has a lot of cool fitness things that he was talking about. I watched some of them on your YouTube as well before our interview, and if you can sit on your butt and get fat at the end of this quarantine, or you can go get coaching from this guy.
That's right. You can stay at home and not have a cool life, or you can talk to this guy and start handling your social circle. All right, Patrick. Okay. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate your time doing the interview. Wish you the best. And guys, check out the links in the description if you want to get a hold of Patrick. He's definitely the guy to talk to regarding building your social circle. Highly recommend it. Yeah, and that's basically it.
Okay, perfect, man.